Newspapers. Publishers of the Greenwich Post, New Canaan Advertiser, the Darien Times, the Ridgefield Press, the Weston Forum, the Wilton Bulletin, the Reading Pilot, the Lewisboro Ledger, the Monroe Courier, the Eastern Courier, the Trumbull Times, Fairfield Sun, Shelton Herald, the Stratford Star, the Milford Mirror, and the Valley Gazette.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
I'm so used to turning on the microphones for everybody else, I forget how to turn on my own. Welcome to Nutmeg Sports on a Monday. We're back from the long weekend on HANradio.com, streaming live on the Hersam Acorn Network. I'm Rob Adams, AJ Simonowski alongside of me for the ride. And look, bottom line is this. We need you, 203-442-9055, as we jump into a Monday edition here of the show. It's one of those weeks where nobody's back from vacation yet, except for us hardy workers who didn't take extra time off. People are still enjoying the long weekend. They're recovering from the 4th of July. Schools are closed. It's that time of year. So by all means, we want to see you light up the phone line to my left at 203-442-9055. And there are a bunch of things, obviously, we can talk about, both locally and outside of our region. And I think, really, I wouldn't be doing my job as much as, let me preface, I'm not a soccer fan. I'm not a football fan. I don't disrespect it. I don't hate it. I get accused of that on occasion, and that's just because, like a Mike Francesa who never talks about hockey until it's playoff time, well, it doesn't mean he hates the sport. He just, doesn't really spend a lot of time on it. Now, I'm not speaking for Mike. I'm telling you a comparison between me and Mr. Francesa. Don't have a Diet Coke alongside of me, but you get the idea. I don't hate soccer. I do find the sport to be largely slow at times, and I've had people try to explain it to me, but I'm not here to dump on the soccer fan today. I'm not. The truth of the matter is I watched very, very little of the World Cup tournament. Until I don't think I turned it on. I ran out and got some pizza last night. I got back home. By the time I turned it on, it was probably, they had it on the pizza place. So I glanced in. They were probably in about the 65th minute there. I glanced back later on, and I made it to the end of the game. I did see the end, so I can address some of the complaints. In fact, I was just listening to a few colleagues talk about the performance of the Fox broadcast. They were less than enamored with it. JP Delacamera did the play-by-play on Fox on TV. Now, I've heard him do the World Cup on radio, on ESPN radio, and I think he's fabulous. I didn't think he was at his best last night. I will say that from the little I watched. And again, I have to preface that by saying I did not watch a whole lot of it. But I did find myself thinking about a couple of things. Number one, the game was a snooze, obviously. I mean, of course, riveting if you're a soccer fan. If you are an American, it's riveting in that all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4-0 before you've, blinked your eyes. In soccer world, that is blinking your eyes, those couple of minutes in which those 4 goals got scored, because you don't normally score as quickly as they did. For Japan, they looked stunned. I can't use any more graceful term than that. They looked stunned by what went on. They got just completely hammered early on by the Americans who attacked them. There's no question about it. And look, just because I didn't watch it all from the beginning doesn't mean that I didn't read, I didn't see some things. I mean, obviously, we're in a day and age where it's very easy to catch up, and the Twitter world was on fire with it all. So we certainly congratulate the ladies from U.S. Soccer. It's a great story. First championship since '99, obviously. And, of course, the Brandy Chastain team, and that's to me, that's a whole different topic. And I know the soccer fan doesn't agree with me on this, generally speaking, that you can't end a championship on penalty kicks. I'm sorry. That's my opinion, is you cannot. You've got to play pretty much until somebody scores for real. I can understand up to a point, but you don't get legends get created in various ways. You don't get the Easter epic between the Islanders and the Capitals in '87 without the 4 overtimes. You don't get it. Brandi Chastain becomes a champion on the basis of 2 things. Yes, the penalty kick, but there's a more obvious reason. Her legend got created because she ripped her jersey off in the middle of, the LA Coliseum or the Rose Bowl, and 93,000 people went absolutely bonkers. So, to me, that's a whole different topic. You want to see a conclusion. But look, that's 99, that's penalty kicks, that's a whole different story. We're talking about yesterday and what went on in Vancouver. It was over pretty early. Even at 4-1, I don't think anybody thought that the Japanese were coming back. At 5-2, you knew it was over. And it was. So we certainly salute the women for going out and winning yesterday, and this is not to dump on the soccer fan, and certainly not to take away all the excitement that you're feeling today and last night for sure. There is a certain amount of glow of a championship, and we congratulate the American, the women who played their, they played their hearts out for sure. And out of that comes some great stories. Abby Wambach going up and getting the World Cup trophy. It was a great sight to see the performance of Hope Solo. But that's where I struggle with this story. And all of a sudden, my feel-good goes there. That's the one piece where I can potentially dump on the feel-good here. Because while we worked our way through last fall, we all annihilated Ray Rice. We destroyed Adrian Peterson, and deservedly so. Now, I understand the background of the Hope Solo story is that the charges initially were dropped. They were dismissed based on a lack of cooperation. That was back in January. However, prosecutors have refiled it all over again. And that's going to get going probably around the 13th of this month. So here's where I'm struggling just a little bit, because I didn't really hear a whole lot from anybody on Fox yesterday afternoon, and I really didn't read a lot of it on social media, which we are quick to condemn. We are that kind of society, and I can't quite figure out why. We hammered Ray Rice, and deservedly so. What Ray Rice did, because there was video, I'll grant you that, but it was deplorable. What Adrian Peterson did, because it involved a child, equally deplorable. Now, there was a child involved in this Hope Solo situation. And because he's a minor, his name is not freely released, but if you go and you look for the story, as I did, I saw the name. It's her nephew. And I almost feel like she's getting a pass. Now, is it because, is this a gender thing? I don't know. I'm throwing that out, okay? I'm throwing different ideas out, and I'm glancing at the phones because I want to make sure anybody wants their say on this can have their say. And AJ's here as well, and AJ, you're more than welcome to jump in because I know you got a microphone alongside of you. What I'm coming around to, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, there is no place for domestic violence in any way, shape, or form, and no one should get a pass. Whether, all these years later, I still hear, and this isn't domestic violence, but this is still violence against a female, I still hear about Ben Roethlisberger, and I am a Steelers fan, full disclosure. That's, years later now. So there's Ben Roethlisberger's factor. There are all these other NFL players that you talk about. I've already mentioned Ray Rice. I've already mentioned Adrian Peterson. I'm not hearing a whole lot about Hope Solo. I don't mean to be spitting on the party. I'm just curious and confused by it.
Rod, do you think it could have to do with the relative standings of the two sports? Any sports fan knows that in America right now, the NFL is king.
I agree.
Soccer and women's soccer, especially, even though the women's national team is generally considered to be better than the men's, soccer is still very much a niche. It's growing, but it still does not yet have the same kind of pull and money behind it,
right,
that the NFL does. And it's really when you see, unfortunately, you see when the money gets involved, that's when you see the actions start to be taken.
I do think there are a couple of things that you factor in, AJ, and those are good points. First of all, there's always that discussion, and arguably not even a debate, that soccer and football, with a U-T-B-O-L, that those are the most popular, well, it is the single most popular sport in the world. You can argue for a couple of others, but there's always that discussion that it's soccer that is the world's sport, the beautiful game. So I don't know. Is Hope Solo, and look, let's face it, whenever there's an opportunity for another part of the country, it's like saying things against New York. It's easy to pick on the Americans. So you would think in other parts of the world, Hope Solo would be a big deal. And it doesn't seem to be. Just, my own research as I've been looking into it today and building up to this, I don't see where it's a big factor. I see where it's like, Hope Solo's got this thing over her head. Nah, no big deal. We all know, it's almost like as media and society, the righteous indignation kicks in when it's male-on-female violence, and I totally agree and understand it, and it should be. But that doesn't mean that female-on-male or female-on-female, male-on-male, and, whatever combination you want to use, to me, domestic violence is domestic violence is domestic violence. It's a nasty. I don't want to trip over my words and say the wrong thing or be politically incorrect, but it's not good. So your point is well made. Is it the sport in this country? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I entirely buy that, but it's certainly. It's a consideration.
I was going to say I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's the entire story.
Right.
I think it plays into it for sure. There's just not as much exposure. We're not seeing Hope Solo on ESPN, or not even on ESPN, on Fox every single Sunday for 6 months.
No, you're not.
And endlessly broken down during the week, the minutia of her game versus. Of her actual game, not the sport, of her game as a keeper, as opposed to, say, Ray Rice's game as a running back, his impact on the team and so forth. It's not dissected as much.
I'm just glancing again at her list of endorsements, and that's often a way that kind of determines your popularity or your Q factor for sure. She signed with LX Ventures and Mobio as a social media influencer in 2014. She's got Seiko, Simple Skincare, Nike, BlackBerry, Ubisoft, EA Sports, and Gatorade, and Bank of America as well. Now, that doesn't mean all of these, from what I'm reading, they all seem to still be active. That doesn't mean any one of them in the past few months has quietly distanced themselves from her. And again, I don't want to ruin the party for everyone today, but as I found myself watching this on Fox yesterday, I'm looking at it going, we're kind of glorifying her. And she rightfully won the Golden Glove trophy for she had the best, or the trophy. She was clearly the best goalie, whatever term you want to use, keeper. She was the best in the tournament by far. She was phenomenal. So yes, you can separate on the field versus off the field, but there's a stigma that's kind of grabbing at me, where so many people, for lack of a more graceful term, crucified Ray Lewis 15 years ago when the Ravens beat the Giants. And Lewis wasn't apparently actively involved with the crime that went down that year, but there was still, again, a stigma hanging around him. And he got absolutely beaten up on a lot of and still does to a certain extent. And I don't know. I that's the thing that I found myself thinking as I watched the end of it yesterday.
It could also be just I realized I watched, I would say, 90% of the game. By the time I had turned it on, it was already 4-0.
Yeah.
The Japanese didn't challenge offensively for most of the game.
No.
So Solo's name was not thrown around much. I think if they had been talking about her more through course of the game, it's at least possible
It's
it may have
possible.
come up, but I do agree with you. There seems to be a far less attention being paid to this when it's no less offensive.
Yeah, I felt like as the tournament went along, from the reading I did, and again, full disclosure, I didn't watch a lot, but in the reading I did, you would think I would have found some more stuff, and I just didn't. It wasn't there. And I think you got to be fair. Now, I'm not saying, I'm not calling out a gender bias or anything like that. I'm just trying to figure out the discrepancy in it. That's the big thing to me. And certainly for Fox, they had the opportunity in that postgame yesterday, and maybe I missed it. Maybe it was after, there's only so much postgame stuff I can watch, even as a fan of baseball or the NFL. There has been more than one Super Bowl postgame that I've kind of went, all right, I've had enough. Can we get on with it here?
You're not a fan of hearing from the third water boy what this win means to him and his family?
Sometimes I'd rather hear from that third water boy than some of the champions. But no, there comes a point where I'm done. One shining moment is all beautiful and stuff, but even that sometimes is like, all right, can we get to one shining moment, please? And some do a better job of getting to it. But I felt like Fox was dragging it last night, and they just reached a point that I flipped it off. I felt like as you're watching Hope Solo in those shots after the game, let's get the close-up on her as she's going over and celebrating with the American fans. Maggie Caldwell, formerly of Hersam Acorn, I'm told, was there as well. Let's see her as she's celebrating with her teammates, as she's going up to the podium, and on and on and on. At some point, you would have thought maybe we could sneak in, and Hope Solo goes from a courtroom to a World Cup champion. I don't know. I feel like there's a time and a place for the narrative to be told because you want to tell the full story.
I was also surprised. I didn't watch a whole lot of the postgame. I was with friends.
Yeah.
We happened to take a break and watch the game before, let's check in on it, and then realizing an hour later we've watched the whole thing.
Yeah.
The Americans did not seem overly happy that they had won. It seemed almost expected.
Almost.
Not that I was expecting necessarily Brandi Chastain levels of excitement,
Yeah.
but you have just won the pinnacle tournament in your sport.
Yeah.
And they're, they're shaking hands and almost heading off the field. It seemed lacking.
Yeah. I'm of a belief where I don't need these big celebrations personally as a sports fan. It's funny you bring that up because I happened to have the Mets and Dodgers on Saturday night, I think it was, for a little while. It might have been Friday night. Either way, I found myself wanting to. I have access to the MLB at-bat app, and of course the Dodgers are involved, and you can probably guess if you know this program whom I wanted to hear. And I could not listen to the master, Mr. Vin Scully, because the Dodgers were playing the Mets, and it's blacked out. And shame on MLB, because that is shameful. Who cares? You've got the master still doing his thing out in L.A., and everyone should have access to that. So ends my rant there, but shame on MLB.
There should just be a Vin Scully app.
I agree with that. There should be a channel.
He should have his own app.
I totally agree. But all that being said, and I have nothing against the SNY broadcasters, Ron Darling, Gary Cohen. Gary can be a little bit too much of a homer for me, but and again, I understand that I'm a Yankee fan. I expect more from Gary Cohen, I guess is what I'm getting at. Anyway, they put up a shot of Sandy Koufax on 2 days' rest, winning Game 7 of the 1965 World Series, beating Jim Cotton, the Twins. I think he beat them 2-0. And the reaction as Koufax gets the final out, I think he struck out Harmon Killebrew, but I'd have to check. It goes right back to what you were just talking about, AJ, that kind of, hey, we won the World Series. Let's kind of grab each other and head off to the locker room for a fine, Ballantine blast.
I go back to, I always tend to think of Don Larson's perfect game.
Yes.
The final strike is called, he just walks off the mound.
Yeah, Larson.
The only one who's excited in that footage is Yogi Berra.
And then the rest of
the team comes in, but he's okay, yeah, I struck him out, we've won, whatever.
Yeah, and in fact, the reaction of the Yankees and fans in that game, that's Game 5. That's what a lot of people forget. It looks like they've won the World Series. That was Game 5. And they had to go beat the Dodgers in Game 7 because the Dodgers win Game 6, and then the Yankees win Game 7. I think Yogi hit a grand slam in Game 7, if I recall. In Brooklyn.
You tend to forget some of those big moments were not in Game 7s. My mind just then went to Bill Buckner, the infamous Bill Buckner.
Phenomenal point.
That was Game 6.
That's Game 6, yep.
The Red Sox still had to lose Game 7 either the next night or a couple days later. I'm not sure.
Boy, what a great little tangent we're off on, but you're right. Game 6, and again, the Red Sox fan knows it. The Met fan probably knows it. The knucklehead like me definitely knows it because Bob Stanley, and of course Calvin Schiraldi is terrible in the stretch of that game, but Bob Stanley uncorks the wild pitch, gets past Rich Gedman, the tying run scores. It's not like Mookie Wilson's little ground ball and Buckner's error brought in the tying and the winning run. Either way, we were going to extra innings. The game was tied at that point, but people forget that. The narrative changes as time goes on.
Right.
And then, as you said, Game 7 was supposed to be a Sunday night. It was rained out. In fact, I remember NBC ran The Natural on TV in place of Game 7. They played it on Monday night at Shea Stadium, and then the Mets and the Red Sox had a lead in that game too. People forget that part.
And
Red Sox led 2-0.
Like to your point of maybe the Met fan does remember it. That series goes down because of Bill Buckner.
Right.
That the narrative to then becomes the Red Sox lose, not the Mets win.
Right. Right. We always forget all the details. We don't remember that Steve Bartman didn't lose Game 6.
In a ball that Moises Alou was never going to catch, even if he was 10 feet tall.
Go watch the ESPN 60, the ESPN 30 for 30 on the Steve Bartman catch. It is so good and so sad to see what sports do to people because the video is very conclusive, and we could see it that night. The savvy fan could watch that game and go, Moises Alou didn't have a play. He didn't have a play. And Alou hung him out to dry for a long time, which was very shameful on the part of Moises Alou. If you watch that video, Steve Bartman was the only person who was going to catch that ball. And Bartman's life got changed irreparably.
He's pretty much still not allowed back in Chicago.
He all but hides out. His family and friends know where to find him. The guy who made that movie did find him, but obviously Bartman wasn't going to talk. It's a shame. And then again, even that, the Bartman play I'll belabor the point for an extra moment. The Bartman play extends the inning. But does anyone remember the error committed almost immediately after the Bartman play? You got to go through this stuff and realize it's not always as easy as it seems. Anyway, again, I'm not trying to dump on the soccer fan today. I'm pleased for the women's soccer team. I am pleased for the soccer fan. It was quite a scene last night. It was a yawner. I haven't checked the ratings or I don't know what kind of TV audience they had. Fox had a decent tournament at times, but just listening to some of my colleagues talk earlier, they are less than enamored with the performance of Fox. I don't know, I know Ian Dark does a great job on ESPN.
I love listening to him.
Yeah, he's great. But is it a fact of you want an accent? Do you want to hear a British accent calling soccer? Is that what it is?
For me, yes, it is.
Now I'll tell you straight up. If Gus Johnson, who was the voice of Fox Soccer for about a nanosecond, if Gus Johnson was calling that championship yesterday, the TV would have been muted.
I think we all have a few announcers that are like that.
Yeah, it would have been muted for me.
But absolutely, it's not necessarily as much the accent that I find enhances the experience. It's some of the terminology.
Okay.
Some of the really dry British wit. I think really fits with the game. Watching the Men's World Cup last year, there was a play. I am completely blanking on who or what it was for.
Yeah.
A backbreaking goal, and Ian Dark's call was he is just the saddest man on the planet right now.
That's well said.
It's
very true.
It brings something to it.
Oh, it does. It absolutely does. Great job. Great. Ian Dark is great. I don't have a problem with JP Dellacamera, but I don't think he had his best game yesterday. Is that fair to say?
I would agree. I don't, and unfortunately, he didn't have a lot to work with. The game was over in 10 minutes.
You know, that is a big factor, and I tell young broadcasters this all the time. You do your best work in the dog games, because that's when you have to go and grab your B material. And I have been at the forefront of, Greenwich beating Wilton 62-15 in football, things like that, where it's 28-0 and you've just kicked the ball off. And you're now going, what the heck am I talking about for the next 2 hours? At that point, you hope you're not working alone.
at the very least, we can say the Japanese side did not give up.
No, they did not.
They kept playing for, I would say, nearly 87 minutes when they got a little chippy near the end. But
a little bit.
That really, if you've embarrassed yourself on the biggest stage. I think I don't hold that against them. But it just became, some of the more flagrant yellow cards were, they didn't have to happen.
Yeah. 203-442-9055 is the phone number. We have a few other things we can bounce around. We can return to this if you want as well. We can get into some of the Legion ball being played, checking on the Danbury Westerners. It's a little bit of an opportunity for us to catch up with things going on around the scene. We'll continue on. It's a Monday edition of Nutmeg Sports 227 right here on HANradio.com, streaming live on the Hersam Acorn Network.
Breaks, sprains, injuries, and pain can now be quickly and expertly treated at Coastal Ortho Express in Norwalk. Why wait hours in the ER? Save a trip and save money going straight to an orthopedic specialist at Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, 203-845-2070. No appointment necessary. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or call 203-845-2070. Fast!
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332, and online at stratfordsmile.com.
Alliance. We are an industry leader in coordinating transportation for large events such as corporate road shows, conferences, and special events. Our team of experts understands the dynamics and logistics of high-pressure situations and complex arrangements, all within a rapidly changing environment. Since 1999, we have added charter jets, event management, and personal protection to our range of services. Mention this ad for $25 off your next round-trip reservation. Alliance and you. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. 855-546-6996 or alliancelimo.com.
Yeah, hey, this is John Ratzberger. You listen to HANradio.com.
Back with you on Nutmeg Sports. It's a Monday edition as we hit July 6th, 2015. I'm Rob Adams. The anniversary of the first All-Star game today, in fact, 1933 in Chicago. Lefty Gomez of the Yankees was the winning pitcher. He also had the first RBI in All-Star game history, which is kind of funny, and it was no sacrifice fly or ground out. He singled, so he actually singled to bring in that first run, and you think about the players involved in that All-Star game, and it's truly a who's who of baseball because, just taking a look at the box score from that game, John McGraw and Connie Mack are the two managers that day. At Comiskey Park, American League wins 4-2, Ruth with a third-inning home run. Starting lineup.
Connie Mack is still managing, isn't he?
Oh, yes, he is. Connie Mack managed from 1901 to 1950. A mere 50 seasons. Here is the National League All-Star Team, 1933. Pepper Martin, Frankie Frisch, Chuck Klein, Chick Hafey, Bill Terry, Wally Berger, Dick Bertel, Jimmy Wilson, and Bill Hallahan. Not all of them Hall of Famers, but Pepper Martin, Frankie Frisch, I believe Chuck Klein, and Bill Terry are all Hall of Famers there. And some of the backups include Pie Traynor, Hall of Famer, Gabby Hartnett, Hall of Famer, Paul Wainer in the Hall of Fame, Carl Hubble, Hal Schumacher, both Hall of Famers as well. The American League, Ben Chapman starts in left field, followed by Hall of Famer Charlie Gehringer at second, Babe Ruth in right. Do I need to tell you he's in the Hall of Fame? Some guy named Gehrig batting cleanup and playing first in the Hall of Fame. Al Simmons in center field is a Hall of Famer. So is Jimmy Dykes at third. Joe Cronin, a Hall of Famer at shortstop. Rick Farrell made the Hall of Fame later on as a catcher. A little shaky selection there. Lefty Gomez, starting pitcher, also in the Hall of Fame. Here are your backups on the American League. Among the Hall of Famers, Jimmy Fox, who, by the way, was the model for Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own. Tony Lazzari, Hall of Famer. Bill Dickey, Hall of Famer. Earl Averill, Hall of Famer. This is just... And Lefty Grove. Lefty Grove was the backup pitcher among the backups.
I'm most interested to hear that Gehrig was cleaning up as ahead of Ruth.
Well, that's how they batted. That's how they got their uniform numbers. Because when they handed them out, the Yankees' first team to do it on a permanent basis in 1929, Ruth hit third, Gehrig hit fourth. And that's the way they batted. Isn't that amazing?
It's almost completely opposite of how you would construct
think.
the lineup today.
You would think they were both so equally good. Although Ruth was obviously a step above Gehrig, but I think Gehrig for me is still in that conversation of top 5 greatest ever. And I think you often forget how good he was. Was he great defensively? No, he was not Don Mattingly, Keith Hernandez, but he was very good defensively at first base. He was a bit of a lumbering player, but he could steal a base. Smart base runner. Stole home several times. So did Ruth, for that matter. You don't think of that, but Ruth in his Trimmer days was an insanely good runner, insanely good athlete.
You don't always necessarily need to be fast. You need to be smart.
Yes, you do.
Speed helps, but if you're running at the wrong time, you're going to get caught.
Bernie Williams is the perfect example. He could run like lightning, but he was not always the smartest base runner. That's why he didn't steal a lot of bases. But it's a great all-star team as you look up and down, and what a collection. What a collection of all-stars. 1933 today in Chicago, and again, just like with the first Super Bowl, the All-Star Game broadcast on 2 different networks, NBC and ABC, which to me is kind of fun. But that was 82 years ago today. Then 50 years later, 1983, you had the 50th anniversary All-Star Game at Comiskey Park again in Chicago, the old building before they tore it down. It's now a parking lot. And, of course, we played it for you on Nutmeg Sports. Freddie Lynn with a grand slam, all part of a big rout as the American League, who couldn't beat the National League to save their lives for years. In fact, I think the losing streak was up to 11 at that point, following the 71 All-Star Game, the Reggie Jackson game, when he hit the light stanchion on the roof. I think they had lost 12 in a row, and finally the American League got the win that night in Chicago, July 6, 1983. So a couple of significant moments, and we mentioned earlier on Nutmeg Sports, don't want to forget Althea Gibson, who won Wimbledon as well. So a lot of good notes on this day in sports history, dating back a long time as we continue with you here on Nutmeg Sports at 2:34. I don't know, I never was able to find a picture of this, by the way, but and we don't talk about this a lot on the show, but I'm going to spend a moment on it here. I don't watch a lot of NASCAR. In fact, I didn't watch this race last night, and I know it's, NBC has been trumpeting that they're getting back into doing auto racing, and I guess Austin Dillon injured, along with a couple of fans, in fact, in this awful crash last night at Daytona Beach. The number that the last I saw, I think, was 3 fans were injured in this just horrifying accident that took place at Daytona Beach. Nasty, nasty thing that went on. And look, just like fights in hockey, there's a certain element of fan who looks at it and goes, well, the accidents are what makes it exciting. I don't know. I do know that Ryan Newman, the Sprint Cup driver, had some very strong thoughts for NASCAR in which he said, quote, NASCAR got what they wanted. That's the end of it. And that's what he told USA Today Sports of restrictor plate racing. Cars getting airborne, unsafe drivers, same old stuff. They just don't listen. But if you saw that crash last night, certainly 5 fans, in fact, I'm seeing now from USA Today, 5 fans were injured. Now, there's a certain element of understanding what you're getting into when you get into that car. And I think we all understand that. For the fans, yes, you can be up close and personal, but it's a whole different level of scary when 5 fans get injured. Absolutely, and it was the Coke 0400 race, so I just want to mention that as well.
And it is worth pointing out that if you look at the pictures or video that's available of the aftermath, the fencing along the top of the track, it really did its job.
Yeah.
The fencing held. Because if that had not been there, that he would have ended up in the crowd.
Oh yeah,
and suddenly we're not talking about 5 injured. We're maybe talking about fatalities.
Yeah, well, yeah, without a doubt. But it was a nasty, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. won it and all that stuff. So happy, joy. But Dylan did walk away, and that's, if there's anything to be happy about, there's that. But again, how do you say this? You don't want to see the driver walking away and 5 fans injured. I guess that's what I'm trying to say in the best way I can.
And he's walking away due to safety improvements brought about in the wake of the death of Dale Earnhardt Sr.
Yeah,
that was when they finally mandated the neck collars and helmets and so forth, which you just I'm always surprised that things like that weren't standard long before that.
I agree.
You're driving around at 200 miles an hour, and if a fly hits your windshield at an awkward angle, you're gonna crash.
Yeah. Nasty. It really was vicious. And it was. I know it was a race delayed by rain and the elements down there in Florida. So certainly, best wishes to those injured down there last night, but very scary situation. And again, I tried to pull up some pictures to give to AJ so we could run them here on the show. I couldn't find any. But that being said, if you find the pictures, they're really they're spectacular photography, but it's harrowing to look at and say, oh my God, what's going on with that car. 2:38 here on Nutmeg Sports. Quick turn back over to baseball. We can turn our eyes to the New England Collegiate Baseball League, the NECBL, home of the Danbury Westerners, our friends up there. We'll get back to seeing the Westerners pretty soon, in fact, but I was glancing at their standings. The Westerners actually coming off a win on Saturday when they beat the Ocean State Waves, and for the Westerners, it's been a rough go. Now, in their last 10 games, they are 4-6. That's the good news. The bad news is they're 4-17, so you do the math. They are 10.5 games behind Mystic in the Southern Division of the NECBL. Plymouth is at 9-12, 5.5 back. New Bedford at 3.5 back. They're 12-11. Newport 13-9. They're 2 back. Ocean State a game behind Mystic, who are 15-7. Ocean State at 13-7. On the other side is the Laconia Muskrats. They are 14-10. They have a half-game lead on the Valley Blue Sox, who are 12-9. The Vermont Mountaineers are 12-10, a game back. North Adams Steeplecats are 2.5 back at 11-12. The Sanford Mainers are 10-11. They are also 2.5 back, with the Keene Swamp Bats 6-16. 7 games back. So we'll get the schedule out and let you know what our next game is going to be with the Westerners. Paul Schaefer and the folks there are more than happy to have us come back and visit them once again. As I mentioned, they got a 5-3 win the other night. And it has been a rougher go for the Westerners, but not bad. A little bit of a roll right now. They won 6-2 as well back on Friday when they beat New Bedford. So hopefully they'll keep it up, because we saw them, in fact, as they lost 2-0 back on June 22nd. A few nights later, they played Plymouth on June 25th, and they lost 18-0.
That's a football score.
That's ugly.
That's not good.
18-0. 8-0. So much. I got to look at the box score.
I was just going to ask.
Yep.
Did they go to position players at the end pitching?
Well, you know what? We'll look into that as well. Here we go. Plymouth put up 3 in the first, 4 in the second. So you're down a touchdown after 2. Stays that way to the 5th. 4 more. 11-0. Stays that way to the 8th. And they put up a touchdown. 18-0. That's rough.
7 runs in the 8th.
7 runs in the 8th. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Up until then, 11-0, you're way down, but that's not completely out of the picture.
Yeah.
7 runs in the 7 in the 8th.
In the 8th.
Wow.
That's woof. That's when you've thrown in the towel. I can't say it any nicer than that. That's
slipping out early to beat the traffic.
Yeah. I'm just kind of checking the box score to see where it really went off the charts. But I don't see any position players pitching. So at least you got...
that's a shame. I always love seeing a first baseman
It's
get
becoming
out there.
more common, too. I see it more lately than ever.
As I know, I know pitch counts and workloads are a favorite topic of yours.
Ugh.
You get these late inning blowouts, and managers don't want to use their relief pitchers.
No, they do not. They don't. They don't want to use their relief pitchers, and like I said, it's becoming more and more common for a manager to say, "Okay, second baseman, go toss me an inning here,"
or several innings if you're Jeff Francoeur.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That was brutal to watch as well. But, I saw, I think Bill Madden talked with Tom Seaver over the weekend in the Daily News. And, of course, Tom Terrific, the franchise of the New York Mets, of course. And Seaver does not like getting on the topic of pitch counts. These older guys don't like it. The older guys think, we went out there and threw, now you do the same. And Seaver had a largely injury-free career, and I understand some guys are just freaks, but we're seeing more and more Tommy John surgery now than ever. I mean, it just seems like every pitcher's going to have it.
I think, and it's a topic that I've actually paid attention to the more I get into baseball, that what they believe the problem is not necessarily pitch counts and overwork.
Right.
But guys are throwing harder than ever before. Suddenly the average fastball on a pitching staff is, I want to say the league average may actually be in around 94. Whereas if you go back 20 years ago, you had maybe one guy on a staff who threw that hard.
And again, it can be these guys who are freaks of nature. Walter Johnson could throw in the 90s, and he won 407 games over a long career. Christy Mathewson didn't have arm problems. Lefty Grove, who we mentioned before. But, Koufax's arm fell off, basically. He had a great, essentially, 7-year run and was gone, with shoulder problems, having him done at the age, I think, of 30 or 31, if I recall.
And he's become the great example of what if the surgery had existed. If he could have had a reparative surgery on his elbow or his shoulder, he could have continued to pitch many more years.
Oh, yeah. I think he could have pitched many more years, but you look at Koufax, and I'm going to pop it up right now. I mean, this is a heck of a year to go out on. 1966. I just laugh at this thought. Here we go. This is his final year in baseball. He's 30. 27-9 with a 1.73 ERA, making 41 starts, 27 complete games, 5 shutouts, and he threw 323 innings.
Only 27 complete games?
Mm-hmm.
What a slacker.
With 317 strikeouts. Now remember, the strikeout pitcher, as MLB starts giving me some free audio, the strikeout pitcher has to throw more pitches. It's not like you're throwing one pitch, pop out, you're done. You're getting strikeouts, so you're throwing at least 3 pitches, if not more, per batter. And, of course, Koufax was a very high strikeout pitcher. 317 in 66, 382 in 65, 306 in 63. I mean, this stretch, AJ, I always marvel at it, and it's really a stretch of 6 years, from 61 to 66, where he goes 18-13, 14-7, 25-5, 19-5, 26-8, 27-9.
Meanwhile, you had
Pretty good run.
You compare them to today, where 250 strikeouts will lead the league by a wide margin.
By a wide margin, yeah.
Successful year is 200.
He walks out on a Cy Young Award and number 2 in the MVP voting.
Can I draft him on my fantasy team retroactively?
And Koufax was a guy that started out, kind of a sketchy pitcher. He was only 8-13 in 1960. He was 11-11 in 58. Going back to 55, they didn't know what to do with him. And then he just puts it together in L.A. in 61, and boom. It's one of the great runs in baseball history. It really is. 2:45 on Nutmeg Sports. We've got a little All-Star Game stuff to talk about. Legion Baseball as well. Maybe glance at some other stuff. We continue on, kind of a free-for-all here on this Monday in Nutmeg Sports. AJ and I sticking out and hanging out with you, and we'll see if we can get the alternate audio out of the way, and it's gone. We're back right after this on HANradio.com, streaming live on the Hersam Acorn Network.
The long winter is finally astern. Bait is invading the harbors, coves, and inlets. Stripers, fluke, and porgies are on the move. In the streams and lakes, trout, smallmouth, largemouth, and walleye have moved out of hibernation. At the dock shop, it's all systems go. And now in 2 locations, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, and their newest location at 609 Riverside Avenue in Westport. Bait, tackle, apparel, and of course, all the marine and nautical accessories that they're known for are ready for you at the dock shop. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Did you know that taking dance lessons is a great date night idea? Arthur Murray Grand Ballroom of Greenwich is a fabulous place to learn to dance and meet new people. Located at 6 Lewis Street, our studio is staffed with professional instructors, ready to teach you salsa, waltz, rumba, hustle, tango. There's a dance for every season. And we are rated #1 on the Knot.com. We are the wedding dance specialists. Take advantage of our new student offer, only $49. Call 203-769-1800. Visit us online at arthurmurraygreenwich.com.
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersam.
You're listening to Hersam Acorn Radio.
2:48 Nutmeg Sports. 203-442-9055 is the phone number. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Rob Adams. AJ Simonowski running the controls alongside of me for this Monday edition and keeping me company as well. In terms of American Legion baseball, we're looking forward to getting back out and seeing some more of that. Hopefully tomorrow. I've got one on the docket for us, but let's see if we can make it happen. In any event, Stanford beat Westport 2-1 on Sunday. That was the lone game. A lot of games actually were up the line as teams were playing in baseball heaven, which is out in Long Island, or up at Cooperstown as well. I think more so at that Field of Dreams Park, not Doubleday Field per se, because you can probably guess, had it been at Doubleday Field, there might have been an effort to get there for 4th of July. Anyway, couple of games tonight, although as I glance outside, it's not supposed to be weather permitting, but it is kind of nasty looking out there. Very gray at this point, very, very overcast. Westport and Darien New Canaan are playing, as well as Norwalk and Bridgeport Post 11. That's in the 19 under division. In the 17 under, it's Norwalk Junior and Stamford Junior, as well as Greenwich Junior and Trumbull Junior. The game's tomorrow. The good people in Ridgefield have wanted to see us, but we're not going to get there tomorrow. The likely game, I believe, would have been Trumbull Westport, so we'll see if we can get that for you. But again, weather permitting tomorrow. I know a lot of talk of thunderstorms tomorrow, and all of that, could lead potentially to a championship run. The American Legion World Series will begin August 13th in Shelby, North Carolina, so wouldn't that be fun? Stanford's certainly having a great year at the top of the 19 under division. They are 16-2, and they've won 3 in a row. And they are considered to be a team with some national potential. One team that can give them a hard time, Trumbull. 15-4, they have won 8 in a row, so they have had an outstanding season as well. After starting just 7-4, they're now 15-4, as I mentioned. Greenwich, the Cannons are always good. They're 14-5, 9-1 in their last 10, along with Westport at 7-6, 6-4 in their last 10. So you think about how far they've come already. They lost the other day. Norwalk is now lost 6 in a row. They are at 8-10. Darien, New Canaan at 6-11. They've lost 1. It's Wilton at 5-10, followed by Ridgefield at 6-13, Fairfield at 6-14, and Bridgeport at 5-13. So hopefully get some games for you on that as well. And it's funny, the schedule seemed like it was going to be the Westerners and Legion Ball, and now you start hearing more. Maybe we'll do some Little League, maybe some other stuff. So we've got some stuff we're bouncing around here that we're going to be bringing to you over the next month and change. August tends to be the quieter of the months for a couple of reasons. Number one, a lot of people take their vacation at that time, present company included. And beyond that, you're almost ready to go back to school in August, at least here in Connecticut. In New York, not so much. And if my son is listening, he's rather happy to hear those words. So that's what's going on in Legion Ball, and looking forward to getting going there. As we hit 251, we should look at the All-Stars for the Major League Baseball Midsummer Classic. We mentioned the 1933 game before. Now we can talk about the 2015 game. And we will go with the American League starters. Salvador Perez of the Royals will make his 3rd appearance, the 25-year-old. And you know what? I mean, 2-time Gold Glove winner. I get it. His numbers are good. Are you going to find a better catcher in baseball?
I think you could. But the only catcher I would put ahead of him is Buster Posey, starting for the NL.
That's exactly it. Posey was hitting 304 when he went down. Yadi Molina is at 292. Brian McCann's hitting 261, 13-52. He had the walk-off the other day. That's from the American League. Does McCann have a case? Yes, he does. Russell Martin is at 12-39, but only hitting 256. Perez at 263, 13-34, so he has less on the RBIs than McCann does. That's kind of where I could see it. Maybe Brian McCann. Stephen Voigt is also having a good year as well. He's hitting for better average at 290. The first baseman for the American League will probably not be the first baseman for the American League. Miguel Cabrera elected. It would be his 10th appearance at the age of 32. Look, he's one of the great players in the entire game. You saw him come up injured the other night. He was hitting 350. My goodness. 350, 15-54. After that, Prince Fielder's actually having a very good year. 347, 13-50.
Prince has come back very nicely from his couple of down years there in Texas.
Jose Abreu, 293, 14-44. Before you finally get down, and you can't ignore Albert Pujols, 265, 25-53. That's why, and this is where I agree with Scott Erickson, who mentioned this off the air. Mark Teixeira has 20 home runs and 59 runs batted in. He's hitting 243 at a position that just has too many other guys. Pujols is probably going to be an all-star. Can't ignore Abreu, and you can't ignore Fielder.
I as much as I love Teixeira, I'm surprised to hear he's actually hitting 240.
Right.
He's never been a really great average guy, but especially in the last few years, if he hits 220 for the season, you're pleased.
Second base, Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve is a very good player. I like him a lot. And hitting 301. I know Jason Kipnis is hitting 341. I don't have a problem with Altuve getting the start. 301. You don't look for a lot of power from there, so I'm okay with that. Kipnis at 341. Pedroia at 306. I'm okay with that one. You could make an argument, but Josh Donaldson, he's going to
unbelievable player.
Yeah,
Donaldson is.
Yeah. I mean, he's just really been so terrific. He gets the start at third. The numbers on Donaldson this year: 296, 19, and 56. I know Manny Machado's 299, 17, 46, but I'm okay. You can't argue with Josh Donaldson. I can't.
And I have heard people making a case for Donaldson for league MVP already.
Already, yeah. I could see that. Now, to shortstop we go, and so much was made of the Royals. Alcides Escobar gets the nod, 276. Again, most shortstops aren't going to give you power unless you're talking older school A-Rod or even Cal Ripken, so he's hitting 276. Maybe you want to see a little more, 13 doubles, 2 triples, but the problem is, unless you go to Xander Bogaerts, who's hitting 302, I don't know. Jose Iglesias at 323.
There's not a whole lot of shortstop talent in the league anymore.
That's why I voted for Derek Jeter, even though he's not playing anymore. We'll come back to that.
The position has become so defensive minded.
I totally agree.
Not that it wasn't always, but in the post steroid era, you just want someone out there who can field the ball. You don't necessarily need them to hit.
The only outfielder that I'm going to give you an argument with would be Alex Gordon. He's hitting 262, 10 homers, 33 runs batted in. But the others, Lorenzo Cain's hitting 305. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, an 826 OPS, it's fine. Among the outfielders, he's the top guy for batting average. And I know not everybody's on batting average, but I don't have a big problem with Lorenzo Cain. I'm not going to go crazy. Mike Trout, come on.
Honestly, just pencil him in for All-Star.
Come on.
To start the All-Star game for the next 15 years.
So long as he stays healthy, and especially once he comes to the Yankees, he's hitting.
Oh, I would love that. I really would love that.
A couple of years from now, how about Trout in the outfield and Matt Harvey on the mound?
Yeah. Mr. Steinbrenner, are you listening?
299 for Trout, 21 and 45. Nelson Cruz, 304, 2150. Certainly deserved consideration. Martinez in Detroit has got 2356, hitting 285. So, yeah, there are guys you can argue for. I'm not going to make a big deal about Lorenzo Cain. I'm all right with that one. And Cruz goes in as the designated hitter anyway. So, I don't think you can make a big deal out of that one. What do you think?
No, no.
No.
I don't have much to say on it. He's playing really well. The Royals are good.
They are good.
They as ridiculous as it sounded and really was, you could make decent arguments for the all Royals starting 9.
You could.
I would not want to see that, and I am actually in favor of MLB's rule that you have a representative from every team. I actually like that. Whether or not they get in, I think it's a nice touch.
I think you've got to have it
because we are talking about professional sports.
Right.
No team, even the worst team in the league, has talent on it. There's one guy. One guy who can hit 30 home runs, or one reliever who's just unhittable. And I think that they maybe to call them an all-star is not right.
But you also need that reason for, the Marlin fan to watch. Or
exactly.
The Diamondback fan to watch. I'm not giving you the best examples, but I'm trying to find that team that's going to get that one all-star.
And for the casual fan, that is a huge draw.
I agree.
The last few seasons from the Yankees, well, the Yankees haven't been very good, but Jeter's going to make the team. Rivera's going to make the team.
Right.
And that's enough just to see your guys do their one inning and shine on a big stage.
And the question is what Yankee and what Met will be there, but that's a topic for another time. National League, Buster Posey at catcher. I mean, Posey's such a good player. 304, 14, and 57. Paul Goldschmidt will make his third appearance at first base, and he has really become a bona fide star. He's hitting 348, 20 home runs, 67 runs batted in. There's
another legit candidate for MVP.
Absolutely legit candidate. Who's having a great year, and I think they got it right in this case, is D. Gordon of the Marlins. .339. Again, you're not looking for power from a second baseman, but .339, 29 stolen bases, and he's just having a really good year. He has 16 doubles and 4 triples in the mix as well, has hit the ball really well. Todd Frazier, a terrific start at third base from the Reds. Absolutely deserved it. 285, 25, and 54. I mean, that's the package right there. His OPS is 946 if you look to such things. Those are just great numbers. Johnny Peralta at shortstop. Now, can we make an argument on Johnny Peralta? Not really. 297, 11, and 42. Yeah, I can't make a big... I mean, Troy Tulowitzki's hitting 321, but I have no problem with Peralta.
As just maybe a dark horse, you could maybe throw out Brandon Crawford from the
Yes,
Giants.
I agree.
Come up a lot in power this year. Is playing really well.
265, 12, and 49.
And and that's not to say Peralta's not deserving. He's very good.
No.
But just to throw out some alternatives there.
Let's go to the outfield. I mean, is there any doubt about Bryce Harper? 347, 25, and 60.
I think he's hurt now, isn't he?
He is a little banged up, but was there any doubt that he was going to start?
Oh, no.
347, 25, and 60, as I said, he was a no-brainer to get that vote. And Giancarlo Stanton, unfortunately, is hurt, and that is just too bad because, again, you're talking about one of the real studs of this sport. Was hitting only 265, but 27 and 67.
And some of those home runs, 450, 500 feet.
Amazing.
And you can't overlook that.
Now, Matt Holliday, to me, is a little bit of a shaky call.
Especially because he is hurt.
Right.
Should be coming back soon.
Right.
But not likely before the All-Star break, and if he does, I don't think he'll play.
Right. That's where the best fans in baseball come into play.
Holliday is the player you think of as, I'd like to say, consistent but unsexy.
Yeah, I go along with that.
He does not shine in any departments.
Yeah,
but he gets his hits. He's flirting with like a 400 on base percentage.
He was on base at a 417 clip.
Yeah,
which is outstanding.
Not
course.
hitting for a lot of power this year, but cranking a lot of doubles. You're on the Cardinals. You're going to score runs.
I agree.
And he's just solid. I was frankly surprised. I pulled up the starters here on ESPN, getting ready for this. I was surprised to see him on there because I knew he was hurt.
Right.
And not playing at Matt Holliday levels this year. He had not hit many home runs. But I don't know who else I would put ahead of him.
Yeah, because Andrew McCutchen's not having a great year. I mean, he's having a good year, but by his standards,
not an Andrew McCutchen year.
297, 10, and 51.
How many steals does he have?
Only 5.
Yeah, speed. He's more speed than power, and if he's not running, he's not doing a whole lot.
Yeah, he's just not having the best of years there. So, be interesting to see what. As always, baseball's got their hands full with the All-Star game, and I have to admit, for the first time in forever, I didn't vote, and I always vote. I mean, you could bet the ranch that I always voted, and I almost always voted with my head. There were those years that I would have a little fun, and I'd do one vote with my head and one vote with my heart, but it was always a fun process, and this year really turned me off, I have to admit. I'll still watch the game, of course, but I was a little turned off by it.
You a fan of the home run derby?
It's lost a lot of its luster for me. I used to be a big fan of it, much as I was into even the NHL skills competition there for a while. I used to be big on the the NBA All-Star Saturday night with the slam dunk and all that, and it's all kind of lost its luster for me. It's all just become a little too commercialized, I guess.
I would agree.
Yeah, and I don't really dislike the man, but 3 hours of Chris Berman going back does get to be a bit much, and I don't dislike him.
I don't dislike him either, but yeah, it's weird to hear him not calling football.
Yeah,
it's not that broadcasters can't do more than one sport, but it's hearing Al Michaels not on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, I mean,
It's just kind of weird.
It's a totally different topic, but Berman as a baseball play-by-play guy is not always somebody who impresses me a whole lot, and that whole All-Star game. And then you get the Mike and Mike factor, and I know a lot of people like them. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but we should say goodbye on that note and begin to head out. We thank you for this Monday edition. Who would have thought an hour ago we actually would have gone 4 minutes over, but I wanted to make sure we were able to get in the All-Star Game stuff. So thanks to AJ. Thanks to you for joining us. We're back tomorrow. Looks like Josh Fisher's going to join us tomorrow to discuss Wimbledon and a little more. So that'll do it for Nutmeg Sports. For AJ Simonowski, I'm Rob Adams. Coffee break gets your day started tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So we'll see you then. But for now, have a great night, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow. So long.
Strike out if you love to shout. Yabba dabba dabba, yabba dabba dabba, yabba dabba 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 doo. Yabba dabba 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 doo.
Hersam, Acorn, and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
Want to get in touch with HAN Radio? You can find us on Twitter at Hersam Radio, on Facebook at Hersam Acorn Radio, or email us at radio@hersamacorn.com.